The woman's voice was barely a whisper, her fingers trembling as they brushed against his sleeve. "Please pretend to be my husband." Marcus Hale didn't recognize her at first. The ballroom was a constellation of champagne flutes and designer gowns. 200 of Manhattan's most influential gathered beneath crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. He'd been standing near the terrace doors, calculating how soon he could leave without offending the charity's board, when she appeared beside him. Small, dark-skinned, wearing a server's uniform that made her nearly invisible among the peacock display of wealth. Her eyes held something he recognized from boardrooms and hostile takeovers, the look of someone who'd already lost everything except the will to survive. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, and then a man was approaching. Marcus shifted his position slightly, turning toward her in a way that suggested familiarity, ownership, protection. His hand found the small of her back. The gesture was subtle enough to seem natural, deliberate enough to send a message. The approaching man stopped 3 feet away. He was handsome in the way that wealth manufactures: perfect teeth, silver-touched temples, a tuxedo that hung with the careless perfection of something that cost $15,000 and was never worn twice. His smile never reached his eyes. "Grace," the man said, and the name fell from his mouth like an accusation. "I have been looking for you." She said nothing. Marcus felt her spine go rigid beneath his palm. "I'm sorry," he continued, his attention sliding to Marcus with practiced ease. "I don't believe we've met. Jonathan Whitmore. I'm on the foundation's board." He extended his hand. Marcus took it. The grip was firm, competitive, a small test of dominance disguised as courtesy. "Marcus Hale." Recognition flickered across Whitmore's face, followed by a careful recalibration. Everyone in this room knew Marcus Hale. 52 years old, founder of 3 Fortune 500 companies, with a net worth that fluctuated by millions every hour the markets were open. More importantly, he had the kind of power that made other powerful men nervous. "Of course," Whitmore said smoothly. "I've followed your work with renewable infrastructure. Impressive pivot from tech." His gaze returned to Grace, and his smile sharpened. "I wasn't aware you and Grace were acquainted." "We keep certain things private," Marcus said. His voice was pleasant, conversational, final. A beat of silence stretched between them. In the background, a string quartet played something ethereal and expensive. Laughter erupted from a cluster of hedge fund managers near the bar. Whitmore's expression never changed, but something cold moved behind his eyes. "Of course. Grace, I hope you'll save me a dance later. We have catching up to do." He walked away. Grace didn't exhale until he disappeared into the crowd. When she finally did, the sound was ragged. "Thank you," she managed. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have—" "Come with me," Marcus said quietly. He guided her through the ballroom, past tables draped in ivory silk and centerpieces that cost more than her monthly rent, toward a hallway that led to the museum's administrative wing. She moved like someone accustomed to staying in the shadows, her body language designed to take up as little space as possible. They found an empty office, dark wood, academic clutter, the smell of old books and furniture polish. Marcus closed the door and turned on a single desk lamp. "Tell me why you're afraid of Jonathan Whitmore." She looked at him then, really looked at him, searching for something in his face. Trust, maybe, or proof that he was just another rich man who'd use her and discard her. "I used to work for him," she said finally, "at his home in Greenwich, housekeeper, then private assistant, for 3 years. Marcus waited. "His wife died last year, cancer. During her illness, I saw things, documents, heard conversations. He has interests in medical research, pharmaceutical development, companies that run clinical trials in developing countries where regulations are—" She stopped, wrapping herself around herself. "There was a trial in Nigeria, experimental drugs for tuberculosis. 37 children died. The data was buried. Whitmore's company paid settlements through shell corporations, had the families sign NDAs in languages they couldn't read." The lamp cast shadows across her face, highlighting the exhaustion there, the weight of carrying secrets that could destroy her. "He realized I knew," she continued, "not right away, but eventually. I tried to quit. He told me I couldn't leave. He said he had photographs, expensive items in my apartment that I'd supposedly stolen, banking records showing deposits I never made. He could destroy me, make it so I'd never work again, never see my daughter." Her voice cracked. "He said I belonged to him until he decided otherwise." Marcus moved to the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. A billion points of light, each one representing someone living their life, unaware that men like Jonathan Whitmore existed among them, dressed in tuxedos, shaking hands, making toasts. "How did you end up here tonight?" "I got away 6 months ago, changed my name, moved to Brooklyn, and started working for a catering company. Cash jobs, nothing traceable. I thought I was safe." She laughed bitterly. "I didn't know he'd be here. I saw him across the room and I just—" "You thought a husband might make you untouchable." She nodded. Marcus turned back to face her. In the dim light, she looked younger than he had initially thought. Mid-30s, maybe. There were faint shadows under her eyes, the kind that come from working multiple jobs and sleeping too little. "What's your daughter's name?" The question seemed to surprise her. "Maya. She's 8. She's with my mother right now, in Newark." "Good." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'm going to make some calls. You're going to stay in this room until I come back for you. Lock the door after I leave." "Mr. Hale." "Marcus." "Marcus," she tested the name carefully. "You don't have to do this. I shouldn't have involved you. I just needed—" "You needed someone to see you, to prove you exist in a way that matters to men like Whitmore. That's what power does. It makes certain people visible and others invisible. You chose well." He opened the door, then paused. "Grace, that's not your real name, is it?" "No." "What is?" Amara Bennett." "Amara," he repeated. "Lock the door." Marcus made 7 phone calls in the next 40 minutes. The first was to his head of security, a former Secret Service agent who took notes in silence. The second was to his lead attorney, who was at a theater performance and left immediately. The third through 6th were to various contacts, a journalist, an FBI agent who owed him a favor, a private investigator who specialized in corporate malfeasance, and a Democratic senator who'd been trying to get Marcus to fund her re-election campaign. The 7th was to his driver, instructing him to bring the car around the museum's service entrance. He returned to the office 20 minutes later. Amara was sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. She jumped when he knocked. "We're leaving," he said when she opened the door. "I'm taking you somewhere safe." "I can't just disappear. The catering company." "I'll handle it. Get your things." She had nothing except a worn coat and a purse that had been mended multiple times. Marcus noticed these details the way he noticed everything, cataloging, assessing, understanding the mathematics of a life lived paycheck to paycheck. They took the service elevator down to street level. His driver was waiting in a black Mercedes SUV, engine running. Amara climbed into the back seat, and Marcus followed. "Where are we going?" she asked as they pulled into traffic. "My apartment. You'll stay there tonight. Tomorrow we'll move you somewhere more permanent." She looked at him sharply. "I'm not." "You're not staying with me," Marcus said calmly. "I have multiple properties. You and Maya will have one. Secure, private, paid for. You'll work for one of my companies if you want to work, or you won't." Your choice. Why would you do this? It was the right question. Marcus watched the city slide past the tinted windows, homeless encampments underneath overpasses, luxury condos with doormen, bistros where dinner cost $300. Because I can, he said finally, because men like Whitmore operate on the assumption that no one will stop them, because... He stopped, considering. 20 years ago, I was negotiating a merger with a tech company in Seoul, Korea. I was staying at the Four Seasons. There was a housekeeper there, older woman, Korean. I'd been working late, needed coffee at 3 in the morning. She brought it up herself, wouldn't let room service do it. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. Her English was limited, my Korean non-existent. But she told me about her son.
He had invented something. Some kind of battery technology, but he'd been cheated out of the patent by his business partner, lost everything. The courts wouldn't help because he couldn't afford proper representation. What did you do? I found him, bought the company, fired the partner, gave your son back his patent, made him an executive. The battery technology is now in 20 million phones worldwide. Marcus looked at her. She didn't ask me for help, but she saw me as a person, not a wallet. Most people in service industries, they make themselves invisible because that's what's expected. She didn't. I've never forgotten that. Amara was quiet for a long moment. I'm not a charity case. No, Marcus agreed. You're leverage. What? Whitmore will come for you. Men like him always do. When he does, I want to know everything. Every document you saw, every conversation you overheard, every detail you remember. I'm going to dismantle his empire piece by piece, and you're going to help me do it. Something shifted in her expression, fear giving way to something harder, sharper. He'll destroy you. He'll try. The apartment was in Tribeca, 37th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson. Amara stood in the foyer, taking in the artwork that cost more than most houses, the furniture that appeared in architectural magazines, the silence that only money could buy. I'll have someone bring clothes, toiletries, whatever you need, Marcus said. Guest room is down that hall. There's food in the kitchen. Help yourself. I'll be in my office. We'll talk more in the morning. Marcus. He turned. Jonathan Whitmore isn't just wealthy, he's connected. Senators, judges, police chiefs, he donates to everyone, and he's smart. Every terrible thing he's done through share companies, intermediaries, people who can't be traced back to him. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. Men like him don't go to prison. Marcus smiled, and there was something cold in it. Men like him go to prison when men like me decide they should. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus assembled a team. The journalist was Diane Reeves, Washington Post, Pulitzer winner, known for taking down corrupt politicians and corporate criminals. She'd been investigating pharmaceutical companies for years and jumped at the chance to go after Whitmore. The FBI agent was Special Agent Peter Coe, White-Collar Crime Division, who'd been building a case against several companies linked to offshore clinical trial abuses. He couldn't officially investigate Whitmore without cause, but he could share information. The private investigator was named Thomas Crane, 68 years old, former IRS forensic accountant, now an independent consultant who specialized in tracing money through labyrinthine corporate structures. If Whitmore had hidden funds, Crane would find them. Marcus set them up in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, away from his usual offices. Amara met with each of them, telling her story over and over, providing every detail she could remember. Dates, names, fragments of conversations, descriptions of documents she'd seen on Whitmore's desk. Marcus watched her grow stronger with each telling, watched the fear transform into something else. Purpose, maybe, or rage given direction. He also moved her and Maya into a brownstone in Fort Greene, quiet block, good schools, a security system that would alert his team if anyone came within 50 feet of the property. Maya was small for 8, with her mother's eyes and a cautious way of moving through the world that broke something in Marcus's chest. He had dinner with them once, brought Thai food, and let Maya show him her drawings. Horses, mostly. She wanted to ride horses. Amara had promised her lessons once they had enough money saved. "How much are lessons?" Marcus asked. Amara gave him a warning look. "We're fine." "I'm asking a question, and I'm telling you we're fine." He didn't push, but the next week, a stable in Prospect Park called Amara to say that an anonymous donor had purchased a year of riding lessons for her daughter. Amara called Marcus immediately. "Stop! You're already doing too much." "I haven't done anything yet." "You've given us a home, security, hope. That's everything." "Hope isn't enough. Justice is." 6 weeks after the museum gala, Thomas Crane found the first major breakthrough. A shell corporation registered in the Cayman Islands, owned by another shell corporation in Luxembourg, which was controlled by a trust in Singapore. Buried in the paperwork was a company called Meridian Health Solutions, which had conducted the Nigerian tuberculosis trials. Meridian was funded by Whitmore Pharmaceutical Ventures, which was, after 8 more layers of obfuscation, owned by Jonathan Whitmore. "It's not enough for prosecution," Crane said, spreading documents across the warehouse conference table, "but it's a start. If we can connect him directly to decisions made about the trials, if we can prove he knew children were dying and covered it up, then we have him." Diane Reeves finished. She'd been chasing this story for 2 months now, fact-checking every detail, building a case that would survive legal scrutiny. "I need more sources, whistleblowers, former employees, someone who go on record." "There are others," Amara said quietly. She was sitting at the end of the table, Maya's latest drawing pinned to the wall behind her, a horse with wings, soaring above a city. "Other people who worked for Whitmore, who saw things. I know some of them. They're terrified, but maybe if they knew they weren't alone." "Can you reach them?" "I can try." Marcus watched her leave the warehouse, watched the determination in her spine, the way she'd transformed from hunted to hunter. Agent Coe cleared his throat. "Marcus, you need to be careful. Whitmore's attorneys have been asking questions. They know you took Amara in. They're trying to build a case that you're involved in some kind of vendetta, that this is personal rather than about justice." "It is personal." "That's exactly what they'll use against you." Marcus stood, moved to the warehouse window. Outside, Brooklyn stretched toward the East River, working neighborhoods, immigrant communities, places where people lived entire lives that men like Whitmore never saw or cared about. "Let him," he said finally. "I want Whitmore to know I'm coming." The story broke on a Tuesday morning. Washington Post, front page, above the fold. Pharmaceutical heir linked to deadly clinical trials in Africa. Diane Reeves's byline, 5,000 words of meticulous reporting, documented everything. The dead children, the buried data, the shell corporations, the payoffs, names, dates, bank transfers, emails from anonymous sources within Whitmore's companies. By noon, it had been picked up by every major outlet. By evening, senators were calling for investigations. By the next morning, Whitmore's lawyers issued a statement denying everything and threatening lawsuits. Marcus was in his Midtown office when his assistant informed him that Jonathan Whitmore was in the lobby, demanding to see him. "Send him up," Marcus said. Whitmore arrived with 2 attorneys, both wearing expressions that suggested they had advised against this meeting. He looked older than he had at the gala, or perhaps Marcus was simply seeing him more clearly now, the cruelty in the set of his mouth, the entitlement in his posture. "This is harassment," Whitmore said without preamble. "You've weaponized that woman's lies to destroy my reputation. I'll sue you for defamation, for—" "Sit down," Marcus said quietly. Something in his voice made Whitmore pause. The attorneys exchanged glances. "You came to my office. You're going to listen. Those weren't lies. 37 children died because you prioritized profit over safety. You buried the evidence, paid off families, destroyed records, and you did it knowing you'd never face consequences because people like you never do. You can't prove any of that. I can prove all of it. The story that ran this morning, that's 1% of what we have.
Financial records, testimony from 14 former employees, documents you thought were destroyed, whistleblowers who are ready to testify under oath. The FBI is building a criminal case. The SEC is investigating your companies for securities fraud. 3 senators are calling for congressional hearings. Whitmore's face had gone pale. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something," Marcus said. "You thought Amara was invisible. You thought you could threaten her, own her, destroy her life, and no one would care because she was just a housekeeper, just a poor black woman with no power, no connections, no value. You were wrong. She had something you'll never have, courage, and she found someone willing to see her as a person rather than property. That's all it took to end you." "This isn't over," Whitmore said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "You're right," Marcus agreed. "You're going to prison. Your companies are going to be liquidated. Every dollar you have will go towards compensating the families you destroyed. And everyone will know your name, not as a philanthropist or a businessman, but as a murderer who thought wealth made him untouchable." Whitmore stood, his attorneys flanking him like bodyguards. At the door, he turned back. "She'll disappoint you, eventually. People like her always do." "No," Marcus said. "People like you do."
After they left, Marcus sat alone in his office, looking out at the city. His phone buzzed. A text from Amara. "Thank you for everything." He didn't respond. There was nothing to say that hadn't already been said through action. 3 months later, federal prosecutors announced indictments against Jonathan Whitmore and 6 executives from his companies. The charges included criminally negligent homicide, wire fraud, securities fraud, and obstruction of justice. Bail was set at $50 million. Marcus watched the news coverage from his apartment. Amara had invited him to dinner at the Brownstone, her way of celebrating, though neither of them felt celebratory. Maya showed him her progress with writing, demonstrated how she could post to the trot. After Maya went to bed, Marcus and Amara sat in the living room. It was sparsely furnished, but comfortable, personal, a home. "What will you do now?" Marcus asked. "I got a job. Marketing coordinator at a nonprofit. It's not much, but it's mine, and Maya's happy, which is all that matters." "You could work for one of my companies. I meant what I said." "I know, but I need to do this myself. Build something that isn't about him or you or any man, just me." She paused. "Does that sound ungrateful?" "No, it sounds free." They were quiet for a while. Outside, Brooklyn hummed with life, car horns, voices, the distant wail of a siren. "Do you think he'll really go to prison?" Amara asked. "Yes." "You sound certain." "I am. The evidence is overwhelming. His attorneys will delay, file motions, try every trick in the book, but eventually he'll stand trial and he'll be convicted." "And if he's not?" Marcus looked at her. "Then I'll find another way. Men like Whitmore operate because we left them, because the systems that should stop them are designed to protect them instead. But systems can be changed. Power can be redirected. It just takes will." Amara smiled. Not happiness exactly, but something close to peace. "You're a strange man, Marcus Hale. Most billionaires I've met," she trailed off. "Most billionaires you've met what?" "They take. You give. I take too. I've built companies that crushed competitors, made decisions that cost people their jobs, prioritized profit over people more times than I can count. The difference is I'm trying to use what I've accumulated for something beyond accumulation. It's not altruism. It's just reciprocity. The world gave me opportunities. I'm giving some back." His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned. "What is it?" Amara asked. "Whitmore made bail. He's out." The room seemed to get colder. Amara wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture Marcus had seen before. Protection, preparation. "He can't come near you," Marcus said quickly. "There's a restraining order. He's being monitored. He'll find a way. That's what he does. He finds ways around rules, around laws, around people who try to stop him. Let him try. But even as Marcus said it, he felt something shift, the sense that this wasn't over, that they'd won a battle, but the war was just beginning. Men like Whitmore didn't surrender. They retreated, regrouped, waited for an opening. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Thomas Crane. "We need to talk. Found something. It's bad." Marcus stood. "I have to go. Lock the doors. Don't let anyone in except people you know. I'll have security drive by every hour." "Marcus, trust me." He left before she could argue, before she could see the worry he was trying to hide. The warehouse was dark when Marcus arrived. Crane was waiting inside, surrounded by documents, laptop screens glowing in the shadows. "What did you find?" Crane looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Another company. Whitmore's developing something called Project Sanctuary. It's a clinical trial network, but different from the others. This one's in the United States. Dozens of facilities, mostly in poor neighborhoods. Baltimore, Detroit, rural Appalachia. They're testing psychiatric medications on vulnerable populations, homeless people, addicts, undocumented immigrants, people who won't be missed if something goes wrong." Marcus felt ice crawl up his spine. "How long has this been running?" 7 years, maybe longer. The documentation is deliberately fragmented, but I've found records of at least 200 deaths that were never reported, never investigated, just erased. Why wasn't this in the original investigation? Because it's hidden better. Meridian was sloppy by comparison. This is professional. Whitmore learned from his mistakes. He built a system where every participant is invisible. Every facility is licensed through shell companies. Every death is attributed to natural causes or accidental overdose. Unless you know exactly what you're looking for, you'd never see it. Marcus moved to the window, looked out at the city. How many people were out there right now, vulnerable, desperate, being preyed upon by men who saw them as experiments rather than human beings? "We take this to the FBI, to the prosecutors. It's more," Crane interrupted. "One of the facilities is in Newark." The world seemed to stop. "Show me." Crane pulled up a document, facility licenses, addresses, intake records. The Newark location was listed as a rehabilitation center, but the patient records were coded in a way that suggested something else entirely. And there, buried in a list of next-of-kin contacts, was a name Marcus recognized. Therese Bennett. Relationship. Mother. Amara's mother. "Does she know?" Marcus asked quietly. "I don't know, but if Whitmore is aware of the connection, and I think he is, then he has leverage again. He can threaten her mother, threaten to expose her involvement, claim Amara's family was complicit." Marcus pulled out his phone, called Amara. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. He called again, same result. "We need to go, now." They took Crane's car, Marcus calling his security team as they raced toward Brooklyn. No answer from Amara, no answer from the security detail that was supposed to be watching the brownstone. When they arrived, the front door was open. Marcus entered first, Crane behind him. The living room was undisturbed, Maya's drawings still on the walls, dinner dishes still in the sink, but Amara's purse was gone. Her phone was on the coffee table, deliberately left behind. On the kitchen counter, held down by a coffee mug, was a note written in elegant script. "Mr. Hale, I think it's time we had a proper conversation. Amara has agreed to meet with me to discuss our mutual interests. I'm sure you understand the importance of resolving this matter privately, between reasonable people. Please don't do anything rash. I'd hate for this situation to escalate unnecessarily." Marcus read the note twice, his hands completely steady. Crane stood beside him, pale. "He took her," Crane said. "He took her and we don't know where." Marcus set the note down carefully. When he spoke, his voice was calm, controlled, final. "Find him." "How?" Marcus looked at Crane, and something in his expression made the old man step back. "I spent 30 years building companies, making connections, accumulating power specifically so that when moments like this arrived, I would have options other people don't." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling in every favor I have, every senator who owes me, every CEO who needs my support, every law enforcement contact who's taken my money. Whitmore thinks he's untouchable. He's about to learn what real power looks like." He started making calls. The first was to a federal judge he'd known for 20 years. The second was to the director of the FBI. The third was to the mayor of New York City. Within an hour, law enforcement across 3 states was searching for Jonathan Whitmore. Within 2 hours, every asset he controlled was frozen pending emergency court orders. Within 3 hours, prosecutors had filed additional charges of kidnapping and witness tampering. But Marcus knew this wasn't about legal process anymore. This was about finding Amara before Whitmore decided she was more useful dead than alive. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Marcus Hale? Whitmore's voice, smooth as ever. I admire your persistence. Most men would have walked away by now. Where is she? Safe for the moment. We're having a conversation about truth and consequences, about how sometimes the right thing is to let sleeping dogs lie. If you hurt her, I'm not going to hurt her, Marcus. I'm simply going to give her a choice. She can continue this crusade and watch everyone she loves suffer the consequences, or she can walk away, disappear, take her daughter somewhere far from here, and build a new life. It's remarkably generous considering. You're finished, Whitmore. Every asset frozen, every company under investigation, every ally abandoning you. There's nowhere left to run. A long pause. When Whitmore spoke again, the smoothness was gone, replaced with something raw and desperate. You don't understand what you've done. Those trials, Meridian, Sanctuary, all of it, they were necessary. The medications we're developing could save millions, but research requires sacrifice. Progress demands it.
Those children, those addicts, those homeless people, they were going to die anyway. At least their deaths meant something. Their deaths meant you're a murderer. No, their deaths meant I was willing to make hard choices that cowards like you won't make. You sit in your tower, pretending your money is clean, pretending you've never hurt anyone. But you have. Every company you've built crushed smaller companies. Every profit you've made came from someone else's loss. The only difference between us is honesty. I admit what I am. Where is she? The line went dead. Marcus stood in the brownstone kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of Amara's life. Maya's school papers on the refrigerator, grocery lists, photographs of mother and daughter at the stable, smiling. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, just GPS coordinates. Marcus sent them to his security team, to the FBI, to everyone. Then he got in his car and started driving. The coordinates led to an industrial area in Queens, abandoned warehouses, empty lots, the skeleton of factories that had closed decades ago. Marcus's security team arrived first, securing the perimeter. FBI was 15 minutes behind. Marcus didn't wait. He found Amara in a warehouse office on the second floor. She was sitting in a chair, hands untied, looking remarkably calm. Whitmore was standing by the window, staring out at nothing. "It's over," Marcus said. Whitmore didn't turn around. "I know." "Then let her go." "I already have. She's free to leave. She's been free to leave for the past hour. We've just been talking." He finally turned, and Marcus saw something unexpected in his face. Exhaustion, defeat. "I told her everything. About Sanctuary, about the trials, about the choices I made and why I made them. I thought if she understood, if someone understood, maybe—" He stopped. "But she doesn't. None of you do." Amara stood, walked past Whitmore without looking at him, and moved to Marcus's side. He's been trying to justify it, trying to explain why killing poor people is acceptable. He actually believes it. I believe in progress. I believe in science. I believe that the few must sometimes suffer for the many. That's not cruelty. That's necessity. No, that's exactly what cruelty looks like when powerful people try to justify it. Footsteps on the stairs, FBI agents,
weapons drawn, surrounding Whitmore. As they handcuffed him, Whitmore looked at Marcus one final time. "You've won. You've destroyed me. Does it feel good? Does it feel righteous?" "No, honestly. It just feels necessary." They led Whitmore away. Marcus and Amara stood in the empty warehouse, listening to the sound of sirens, voices, the machinery of justice finally grinding into motion. "Are you all right?" Marcus asked. "I don't know. He didn't hurt me. He just talked for an hour straight, trying to convince me that what he did was right, that I should understand. It was..." She shuddered. "It was worse than threats, because he really believes it." Sociopaths usually do. They walked out of the warehouse together. Outside, federal agents were processing the scene, documenting everything. Diane Reeves was with a camera crew. The story would be everywhere by morning. Billionaire arrested, hostage safe, justice served. But Marcus knew better. The trial would take years. Whitmore's attorneys would file appeals, delay tactics, expert witnesses claiming the deaths were unavoidable complications. There would be settlements, plea deals, compromises. Justice would be slow, imperfect, frustrating. And even if Whitmore went to prison, others like him would continue. Other pharmaceutical companies, other clinical trials, other powerful men deciding that some lives mattered less than profit. But tonight, right now, one man had been stopped. It was enough. It had to be enough. 6 months later, Marcus sat in a federal courthouse in Manhattan, watching Jonathan Whitmore stand before a judge. The prosecution was devastating. 14 former employees testified. Financial records proved direct knowledge of the deaths. Documents showed Whitmore had personally approved covering up the Nigerian trials. The Sanctuary Project was exposed in horrifying detail. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. When the verdict was read, Whitmore showed no emotion. He stood motionless as the judge set a sentencing date, as his attorneys whispered urgently to his ear, as federal marshals prepared to take him into custody. Only once did he look back at the gallery, his eyes finding Marcus and Amara sitting together in the second row. The expression on his face wasn't anger or fear. It was curiosity. As if even now, even after everything, he couldn't quite understand what had happened, how the invisible woman he'd tried to own had found someone willing to see her, how power, for once, had been wielded to protect rather than exploit. Then he was gone, led through a side door, and it was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Diane Reeves was doing a stand-up, explaining the verdict's significance. Amara's attorneys were giving statements. Maya was home with Amara's mother, safe. Marcus and Amara walked away from the chaos, down the courthouse steps, into the autumn afternoon. "What now?" Amara asked. "Now?" Marcus considered. "Now we find the others. The people Whitmore worked with, the companies that enabled him, the systems that allowed this to happen. We dismantle them piece by piece. It'll take years. You don't have to." "I know," Marcus smiled, "but I'm going to anyway, if that's all right with you." Amara looked at him, this strange, powerful man who'd chosen to use his wealth for something other than accumulation, who saw a frightened woman in a ballroom and decided her life mattered. "It's all right with me." They walked together down Center Street, disappearing into the crowd, 2 people among millions, invisible and essential, ordinary and extraordinary. Behind them, the courthouse stood as a monument to the idea that justice was possible, however imperfect. Ahead of them, the city spread endlessly, full of secrets, suffering, people being crushed by systems designed to protect the powerful, but also full of possibility. Marcus's phone buzzed, a message from Thomas Crane.
Found another one. Biotech company. Human trials in Eastern Europe. Similar pattern to Whitmore's operations. Interested? Marcus showed Amara the message. She read it, then looked up at him. When do we start?